Time is 7:03 and I am going to start the Sanborn Regional School District Budget Committee meeting. Little tap. And we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Right. In attendance today, I know Terry and Vanessa are unable to make it today, but they give me notice of that. We have Ken Anthony, Matt Angel, Pamela Brown, myself, Courtney Hewitt, Dan Guide, Amanda, oh, your last name, I don't want to mess it up. Aiello, and Micah.
Hold on. There we go.
Yes. To kick off our second meeting for the Budget Committee. Our first meeting for this review cycle was on April 13th. I sent out an email with the meeting minutes. Does anybody approve? Oh. Any comments?
So I had noticed one thing on it. I believe Micah's town was listed incorrectly on it. It says he's Kingston. And he lives across the street from me, so he's Newton.
That is true. Good catch.
Any other comments? Move to approve with that one adjustment. All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you. And Micah, you are up next. Is there anything budget committee related or budget related, excuse me?
Yeah. We school board just last night has approved a schedule for the budget process. Yay.
Excellent.
That's where we're at. That concludes my lengthy remarks.
Okay. I have been keeping an eye on the school board agendas. I noticed that there was a couple of donations, but there wasn't anything like heavy big hitters on budget related items. So thank you, Micah. And then for the rest or the next two parts, I'm going to have Matt Angel present kind of budget 101 just to get everyone thinking about the budget and getting just a general idea of what to look for, basics. And then he is going to share last year's budget with us for a review, and we can talk about that process after. I'm going to move and not trip over Dan. But you're going to pass that over to the other side.
Right.
Wired
I'm
back.
gonna try to present
know.
from over here. Stuck on the wall. Okay.
I thought it would be easy.
I got you.
Thank you.
I want to see you and
And Matt, how would you like us to do questions? Can we interrupt you? Do
You can interrupt me. That's fine.
All right.
Let's, oops. I had this. Okay, so before I start off, I want to just kind of quickly go over the calendar that was approved last night. Unfortunately, this is the draft version. I haven't had a chance to put in the dates at the bottom. Okay, the important dates, a lot of them are just like last year. The first one is November 1st is when the superintendent's going to propose his budget to the school board and the budget committee in a joint meeting. I'm going to go to the next page. Hopefully on November 29th, the school board is going to recommend its budget to the budget committee. And then the budget committee is going to start deliberating on November 30th. And then hopefully the budget committee approves its budget on December 14th. And then we're going to jump into January right after the holiday season there. The next big one is the public hearing on January 9th. And it has a snow day of January 11th. And then I'm going to jump on down. The next big one is going to be February 7th, which is going to be the first session of the district meeting. This is called the deliberative. And then jump on down. The second session of district meeting is going to be on March 12th. And there's going to be voting at the Swayze Gym in Kingston and the Newton Safety Complex in Newton. So that was what Micah was reporting on earlier. Let's see.
I make a couple comments on the calendar.
Absolutely.
Yes. So things I want to point out to all of you is if we go back up to the November dates. The school boards, that page, the school board, we have our joint meeting. That's what we talked about, where we're going to have the principals and department heads. So that's something that we implemented last year. We're going to continue. And on the next page, there's a 1-day difference between when the school board recommends it to budget committee and for us to start deliberation. And so my recommendation is to plan for the 29th, to either watch it or attend, so that you have an idea going into the 30th. We will talk about it on the 30th, but it was useful for me last year to be able to watch that. And
I do have to point out for that November 29th date, when we were trying to build this, normally that's the first meeting in December. And if we kept it in December, we would take a week away from the budget committee to consider the budget. So.
and we have 2 weeks to deliberate. So if we have to have more than one meeting, that's acceptable and the plan as of right now.
And we're gonna get a copy of dates, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So they just approved it, so then we'll post it and we can get it onto our shared drive, and we can send it in an email too.
All right, so what I tried to pull together, what I was asked to pull together were year-end results and to discuss my budget 101 from last year. So year-end results, annually we prepare a DOE 25. This is a report that we use to calculate it's a financial statement report. It includes the balance sheet and income statement. On the balance sheet, there's the unassigned fund balance, and in that we're returning $681,796. I'm going to upload this presentation. So and it's already in your drive. Okay. So if you click on that link, it will bring up the DOE 25. If you go to the first page, it is the number on the blue number on the bottom left. Okay. Let's see. Let me see if I can go back. All right. Now, where did it come from? We had $106,306 of revenue over budget. We had $600,513 of appropriation returned, or unspent appropriation. We decreased the capital reserve expendable trust contribution. 1 year it was 175,000. This year it's 125. And then we increased the contingency fund. The school board voted more funds into the contingency fund before year end. So the amount returned to taxpayers is $681,796. Now I put in a detailed slide. So if you wanted to see how I calculated the numbers, basically the way you do it is you take one DOE 25 for 1 year and compare it to the next. And then you add in the appropriations. Okay. So this is the basic tax rate setting format. What it is, it's kind of upside down from your business, where we start with appropriations or expenditures, less revenues, and the net appropriations is what is being taxed to all the taxpayers. Now there's a super complicated formula that we follow in apportioning the net appropriations between Kingston and Newton. That is going to be on another slide, but what our impacts to the tax rate are revenues. As revenues increase, it lowers the tax rate. As voted appropriations increase, it increases the tax rate. reservations of fund balance. If we increase a reservation of fund balance like the contingency fund, it lowers the amount that gets returned back to the taxpayer, thus increases the tax rate. Now, this is a new slide for this year. What I want to point out here is there are two major components to state adequacy funding. The first is the statewide education property tax. You'll see that on your real estate tax bill. So if this number increases, the local real estate tax decreases, the amount of money that comes out of your pocket doesn't change. Okay, it just goes from one bucket to another. So the adequacy grant, this is money that actually comes from the state of New Hampshire to the school district. If this amount decreases, your local education tax increases. That means that we have to collect more money from you. So I just received adequate funding that's going to be put on the used for the tax rate in November. And if we compare from one tax year to another, you can see that the real estate tax went up 827,000. This number right here doesn't change the amount of money that comes out of your pocket, but the adequacy grant right here went down $608,195. That means your tax rate's going to go up just because the state reduced the cash coming to the district. Now, here's an important distinction that I want to point out. Whenever I talk about the tax rate, I use the combined state and local tax rate. We believe that the combined state and local tax represents the true cost of education to our taxpayers. Okay, what you'll find is some school districts just represent the local share. Okay, so this is the tax rate worksheet. I'm going to try to bring it up on the screen. So this is the one that I try to use for estimates. Whenever you ask me, Matt, how much is this going to impact the tax rate? You'll have a copy of it. You guys can play with it, change the numbers on it. That's fine. I do update it as information comes in. So for example, Kingston's getting revaled right now. When we find out the new valuation for the town, I'm going to put it at the bottom of my spreadsheet. But basically it starts out with, up here is the appropriations, and then they back out revenues. These are local revenues right here. So this would be tuition from Fremont, interest income, and so on. And then there's an apportionment for debt. This is where we get into some of where it gets complicated. The state tax rate is apportioned right here. This is the state adequacy grant, which gets apportioned right there. This is where the cash comes in from the state. We have to allocate impact fees that we collect from each of the towns. And then down here is how it actually calculates the apportionment based upon the average daily membership. And then on the bottom, I'm sorry, this is where it calculates the net tax assessment. And so this what ends up for your local tax. Then I bring it together down at the bottom and I try to make a comparison of what the tax, or determine what the tax rate is for Kingston for both the state and local, and show the combined, and the same with Newton. All right, so I'm gonna jump ahead. So there are 4 primary forms that you would be concerned with. Okay, the first one is the MS-27. This one I have to prepare. It's going to be prepared around December, beginning of January. You're going to approve it in January. What this does, and I'm going to explain it a little later. The MS-22 is a report of appropriations. So at district meeting, the voters vote on what our budget's going to be. I have to report it on that. The MS-24 is estimated revenues. I generate the estimated revenues with the updated information that I know of in November. And then the DOE 25 and the MS-25 is the school financial statement. And I just prepared it for last fiscal year. So the MS-27 is the proposed budget. So when the budget committee approves the proposed budget, I have to put it on the MS-27. then we have to post it all throughout the town so that it pretty much gives the taxpayers notice of what the district's going to spend their funds on. It's not used for setting the tax rate. It's only for information.
Is this the blurb that goes on the ballot, or is this something different? It breaks it down more?
It's the amount that goes on the ballot, but it breaks down the amount of revenue as well
Okay.
on the same report. And then it calculates how much the budget can be increased or decreased at the deliberative session. Okay.
Thank you.
So the MS-22 is again the amount of appropriations approved at district meeting. I have to report that in March. This is used to set the tax rate. The MS-24 is an estimate. Now, just to kind of quickly let you know, when I try to do the revenue estimates, I try to budget as tight as possible, because then that draws down the tax rate as much as possible. Okay. And then the DOE 25 again is our financial statements that we have to report to the Department of Education and also the Department of Revenue Administration. Are there any questions? I went through this really quickly. Should we go back to the financial numbers? Okay.
We're gonna hear it more than once. I feel like it's gonna be helpful. You can refer back to this presentation to be like, remember, we talked about it here. I think that it was really helpful to hear that the state money, how the state money, the difference between the state money and the local money, how that will impact each other. So
Okay, so
I could stand to hear that again.
I just wanted to kind of quickly bring this up. This is a report that I found from the Department of Revenue Administration. Basically, it shows the assessed values of the of each of the communities. I'm sorry, it shows the equalized valuation of each of the communities. What it tries to do is it tries to bring the valuation up to fair market value. So before the valuation, Kingston was almost 70% of fair market value. And your state tax rate was $1.42 on an equalized basis. So if you're thinking about what your tax bill might look like, the state tax rate is 88 cents. And this is just a rule of thumb, okay? And then for the local, I think there's the, wait a minute, let me see if it's over here. The local last year was $15.75. But the on an equalized basis, it's going to be $9.75. Okay, so if you know your new assessed value, you can multiply this. It will give you a rule of thumb of what your tax bill might look like. All right. Any questions?
I got one.
Yes.
So the state adequacy fund comes from many revenue sources. Can you just list off what some of those sources would be? That they then return to us? I assume most of it's paid by us, since ultimately we're the taxpayers, but.
Yeah.
Federal money, I assume there's federal money in there as well.
Oh, in the adequacy grant?
Yeah.
No, there's no federal money in it. To me, it's kind of nebulous in where they get the money from. I'm kind of assuming that some of it's coming from the sale of liquor and also some of the lottery money.
Right, yeah, I was thinking that
Okay.
too.
So
No federal.
because basically the adequacy is going to be based upon the Claremont decision, the Claremont cases that were in the 90s, in the early 2000s that dealt with the funding of school districts. So back then, 100% of there really wasn't any state aid, adequacy aid to the school districts. Claremont sued the state, and it was determined that the local real estate taxpayer was paying for the a large burden of adequacy aid. Okay, so what they did was because of the Claremont decisions, they broke up the tax rate between the state and the local share. And so that the state could say that a portion of that real estate tax was part of adequacy aid. And then if you remember, there was the donor town period, and they got rid of it. So I pulled this up anticipating a question like this, where all of the state money is paid directly to us, the school district. Okay, so none of it goes to the state. But then they started giving that the grant, which actually brought down the tax rate. And so what I'm seeing right now is kind of a shift away from that grant and back towards the swept tax. But let's see, this document, by the way, Pam, this is on the Department of Education's website. If you go to education.nh.gov, go to educators, to grants and funding, and then you go to state aid programs. And then this is all the adequacy aid for by year. But there's a document down here that says how the aid was determined. And really, this is more of how it was calculated, not how they raised the money for it.
Okay, thanks.
What else do you have for us, Matt?
What?
It said, what, oh, did you have something?
Yeah, when you say equalized, explain to me what that means.
Okay, so your assessed value on your property, when you get your tax bill, it's based, especially in Kingston, I think they do their assessment every 5 years. So after 5 years, that value is not fair market value.
Yes.
Okay. So when the state will come in and do a study, and they will figure out, they'll kind of estimate what they think fair market value for the town is. And then they'll come up with an equalized valuation so that you can compare Kingston to Newton, and then compare Kingston to Claremont, or even Concord, any town in the state, so that the valuation between all of them is the same. And it's important for them to do it because they also have to prove that they're handing out their state adequacy aid or real estate tax on an equal basis. And you can see all these communities, the equalized valuation tax rate for for the swept tax is pretty close to 88, 89 cents. Does that make sense?
Almost.
Equalized valuation represents an estimated fair market value of the overall value of the town.
Okay. What they said, so it's not an average of all this, it's like a sampling,
Yes.
right, of. Okay.
Okay, but this is calculated by the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And so for Kingston, the equalized valuation for the whole town is $1.4 billion. And for Newton, it's 914 million. Okay.
Yep.
Another reason why another point for using the equalized valuation is they use that number when calculating the debt limit for the town. So that's like the credit limit.
Mhm.
The district can't bond more than the debt limit. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Let me turn this off.
We done with the,
Yeah.
okay.
Let me get that for you.
Yeah.
You can keep talking about school budgets for days if you want.
You will.
All right. So, thank you, Matt, for going over that.
Yeah.
And we talked about last year's budget results. And we're going to put that data on the shared drive, Matt, the spreadsheet for us to review.
Yes.
I know there was somewhere in a shared drive that talked about, there's like 1,500 line items, but there is a method to the madness with like what the accounts actually
Yes.
mean. So like 10 means something, 1,100 means something else.
Yes.
Do you have that?
I can put it out there for you.
Yes. So that, I think I kind of figured it out on my own last year. I was like, okay, this looks like it's all middle school stuff. This looks like it's all baking
Yes.
stuff. But if there's a way, and that's how I looked at the budget, I kind of broke it down by school. And the other thing, I don't know if people are Google Sheets experts, but I do much better in Excel. So some conditional formatting and stuff, you can kind of find differences. There are a few things that come up when you review the budget that were, so like in the budget, you're gonna see line items where $1 is assigned.
It's already up,
Is it?
Matt. Yeah, a review of account structure and prior year budget. Where it tells you what the fund, function, subject, object level.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah, I just found it on the shared drive, so it is there.
okay.
Matt can bump it, so it's,
Move it up.
yeah, but
Sure.
it is there though. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly, so these are the things I learned last year. I was like, okay, let's figure out what the accounts, like, what does this line item even mean? There's a like a description there, but is it for Bakey or is it for Memorial? And having an understanding of what those accounts are is very helpful. Putting into whatever format, Google Sheets, Excel, whatever, so that you can sort. Things that you will see are frequently asked questions like, why is this line item $1? It's because the account is open, but we're not actually allocating any funds. So it's just like a placeholder. The other things, and Matt, you can add to my list, money shifts. We have transfers for, was it health insurance? There's certain things that shift, or special education, that's the one. The special education funds follow the student.
Okay. Yep.
And so you'll see that, Bakey was high last year and now it's higher at Memorial. It's probably because a kid shifted over. So some of those things you'll see shifts in those accounts, but sometimes it's, kids moving. And so we can pull together some of those frequently asked questions so that you don't have to, we'll put it in the spreadsheet so that you can see, this is what $1 means. This is why you would see a shift in special education. There might be a couple other things that I'm not going to remember right now. But my suggestion is, last year we used a Word doc. I put together a Google Sheet where we would just put same information as the Word doc. It has your account number. It has the description, your amount. You put your name in there. When you put it in, Matt will answer it on that sheet. And so if all 5 of us have the same question, we don't each have to type it in 5 times. If you want to put your name next to it, go for it. But I'm trying to save us all time and Matt's time from asking the same questions. And if he's putting the answers in, we can all see them at the same time. So Google Sheet was created with the same information from the Word doc to help us see what the other people are asking. And the intent for the review of the budget from last year is to have it wrapped up by the end of this month so that Matt can really focus on the upcoming budget and not have to worry about last year's. And this is a really good exercise just to get yourself used to what happened last year, what are the things, and just looking at the budget. So is there anything you can think of, Matt, that we should that we should know about last year's budget? We have the number of money returned.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything?
About last year's budget.
Yeah.
Well, our special education costs soared. They're 25% more than the prior year. So we're expecting that to be a struggle for this year.
Sure.
So don't be surprised, I guess. That's something you will see. Okay. Next on the agenda, I know that Matt had some facility tours, probably in May. Does anybody else, Matt offered to do some more if anyone's interested?
You
Drop the
mentioned the
book.
water tanks, I think, at the board meeting.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
Okay.
So just send
Here
me
at
an
this
email.
building.
Well, whichever building it was, I remember you said you'd give a tour to some of the.
Oh, the
board
water
members.
tanks out back. Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about? Yeah.
I don't think I've seen those, so.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a 15-gallon tank in the ground out back here. And then we also have a huge water treatment facility out back.
Well, I think I saw that, but
Yeah.
it was the tank Tom was concerned about
Oh, yeah, yeah,
cost of replacing.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Send me an email.
We can pop that open
Okay.
and look in.
Right.
I do think that at some, or I know I'm going to ask, from the, I'm gonna call it the continuous improvement plan, but that's probably not what it is.
CIP plan.
Capital improvement plan.
Yes.
And just the overall, oh my gosh, we had the goals for the 5-year goals, right? So I would like some sort of summary at some point during this process where it says like our capital improvements, what are we planning for the next couple of years? And any other potentially anticipated things to help meet the goals of the school board. I know Tom's presentation will probably cover some of that, but I'd probably like a little bit more detail
Mhm.
when the time comes. So I don't know if that's coming from Micah or Tom or the school board or who.
I can
but,
present on the CIP plan. Yeah.
okay. And then based on that, maybe I'll want to go see something too. So. All right. So facility tours, we're gonna
Do
submit.
have one important thing.
Yes.
I put the basic laws of budgeting in the Google Drive. Okay. And so I had to buy a copy for each one of you. So it's not a shareable document because it's copyrighted. All right. So, and basically it's the 2022 supplement. And then they have a 2023 little pamphlet that goes along with it. Okay. So
So can you send that one as well, or 23 supplement?
it's in the Google Drive
It is, okay. I
and
just saw the.
yeah. And I
handbook
printed
for
it out.
22.
I'm sorry. I also emailed it out, I believe, to all the
Okay.
members.
I'll look for that.
It should be in the shared drive for planning for this year. It should be, if you go into the shared drive, there's one folder for planning this year. Anything he's been sending, I've been trying to put in there. So we have it all in one place. I might miss stuff. So feel free to,
No, it's there.
okay. All right. So, I think we've reached to the part where there's public comment. There is no one here. Any other comments from the committee? Micah? Amanda?
Nothing.
Dan?
I'm good.
Pam?
I do. Some of them have been answered. These are just general questions because we're spending on specific programs. I'm not sure how the programs are doing. Sometimes we want to find out if we should continue spending money on certain programs. So I'm looking at outcomes all the time, basically. I think we actually found some software we weren't using anymore a few years back, but we were still getting a subscription to it and we deleted that expense. This was some time ago, but I recall that happened.
Yeah, we reduced the budget on that
Right, so
significantly a couple years ago.
those are my questions, and to comply with right to know laws, I'm asking them at the meetings instead of exchanging emails and stuff. These are just general questions. First, could you have the board members speak into the mic, please, at meetings? Because even if they turn their head, you can't hear what they're saying. So that would be something I'd like. And it would be possible, but to post the subcommittee agendas. Even if it's the day of, it would be helpful if they could do that.
I don't know what
The subcommittee agendas are posted,
they're posted on.
24 hours before the meeting.
On the SAU page?
Yes.
Okay, sometimes I'm looking for them and I don't see them, so I'll
Yeah.
just,
Give me a call when you don't find something
okay.
and I'll see what happened.
And the attachments sometimes are prepared an hour before the meeting. I understand that. But if we could get them like by noon,
The attachments for the committee
or
meetings.
facilities, finance, AISA. I've been going to the subcommittee meetings or watching them, and they're flipping pages around and I have no idea what they're looking at. So there's no possibility to make public comment without seeing what they're looking at.
You have to have access to their Google Drive.
Well, it's a public meeting and we have public comment time, so I'd like to kind of see what they're looking at. That would be helpful.
Are you going to
We
these
would, we
meetings?
would show you
I am, yeah.
in person.
I
You're
do.
there in person?
Yeah, some of them.
I would think that if you were there in person, then yeah, you could get like a hard copy or something.
Yeah.
I do get some of them, but not always. So that would be helpful as well. I know the subcommittee assignments were just announced. Any word on the negotiations subcommittee? Do you have any
That's
inside information on who was selected for the negotiations?
for which negotiations?
The professional staff.
Oh, I don't have any comment on it now,
Okay.
but we can get back to you on it.
Also, the Chromebooks that were approved this spring. Mr. Nealt asked if the Chromebooks were necessary for our third graders.
Hmm.
And the superintendent said, that's a good question. We've never discussed that. And was there any follow-up on that? Do you know? For the young kids' Chromebooks? Third grade?
I'm not aware that we've followed up
I
on
don't
that.
need any responses tonight. I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
I
questions.
can look into that though.
And the Marshall Plan reports on professional staff performance. There was no report on that this spring. I'm just wondering if that's coming up,
Okay,
if the Marshall Plan program is working. Matt noted inflation's up at the finance meeting. It's permanently up 16% for the last 18 months. That amounts to a permanent 16% sales tax for those that are playing at home. I noticed that Mr. Ambrose approved an increase for non-union staff to help them out with the inflation we've been having. And I just want to point out that many taxpayers are not getting a pay increase of 4% in order to pay us taxes. So we need to be really careful about accommodating staff, but at the same time, the taxpayers may not receive a similar increase at their positions. And we need to think about how to be more efficient. Now, Mr. Ambrose said, quote, "We found the money in the budget for the 6,000 for the pay increases." And he said, quote, "We have spots where we look." So I'd love to see a list of those spots. If you can ask him about that, that would be helpful. I'm just curious, just for a future reference, might be nice to know. He also mentioned special ed, and he said we have to be very conservative fiscally right now because special ed is having some challenges. Without divulging any information about details, I was just wondering, and you just mentioned 25% increase in the cost there. So I did talk to you about, Matt, I talked to you about the fact that some families have really great private health coverage as a family, and it's possible that some of the special ed expenses that we're incurring could be shared by the parents through their own coverage. And you mentioned to me that you had looked at that in the past and it was about $50,000 at most that we could possibly recover. But I think 50,000 is a start, and with the growing costs of special ed, we should definitely try to assist parents in understanding where they might be able to help out the district.
And that's Medicaid, by the way. The
Okay.
50,000 is Medicaid
Oh, it is? Okay, so
and
that's not likely to help us.
Dr. Kennett is aggressively trying to bill more to Medicaid.
Okay, that's awesome. So thank you so much. because one special needs pupil requires as much as 250,000. In some, it can be as high as, so we need to be very careful that we're serving that student, but we're being efficient about it is my concern. And the board recently in spring approved a waiver to a water treatment company. I could not find that in any of the minutes, but I remember seeing that video because they granted this company a contract, allowing it to bypass our normal bidding procedure. And because it was a long-established, longtime vendor of the district, and unless an emergency arises, we should comply with the board policy DJE to protect the confidence and integrity of the process. All businesses start out small, and just because someone's big and has a long track record with us, even small businesses would like to make their pitch to at a board meeting and grow. And as an economist, I appreciate openness and competition in the bidding process. So if I see any waivers again this year, I'm going to come back and complain. All right.
There was an explanation at the school board meeting as to why the policy was waived. And you might want to review that meeting again.
If you could recall the date, I did look at all the minutes, but I couldn't find anything in the minutes.
Mhm.
So I did listen carefully and I didn't see a totally valid.
Isn't there something about speed,
Sorry?
trying to get it done
Well,
as
that's
fast
an
as
emergency
possible?
to me.
That's why we did it that way.
I think part of it was,
The availability of the filters.
yes, that's right.
And it was the speed at which this
Yes.
company could
Yes.
service it.
But I think it was also because the low cost bidder in the past actually cost us more than double the cost
Sure.
of the original filters.
Right.
They had to rebed them.
Okay.
Okay. And the problem here was our arsenic levels had spiked and the filters need to be rebedded or replaced. And
Yeah,
we had to move on.
I remember
I
that.
just don't think we should take the sole vendor's word for it that no one else in town is as good as they are. We should actually, do a little research. But if it's an emergency, I understand exactly what happened.
Again, please see the meeting because we did do the research.
Okay, I'll look at that again. And my last comment, believe it or not, is I did see that we have the new test scores coming out and they were in the minutes of a recent board meeting. The high school math and reading, I have copies for anyone who's interested. Math and reading's 45%, state average is 59, SAT math 19, state average 35, and science 34. I did email the superintendent and I asked him, given that we have other ways to measure graduate success, such as the ACT scores, the armed services tests, and the advanced placement exam, if we factored in success in these other metrics, our students would look a lot more successful. So I asked him if he could provide that information. So I'll ask at the next EISA meeting, but I think we may be better off than we look. That's what I'm saying. A lot of students don't take the SAT seriously, but they may take the armed services test very seriously. And so that shows that our programs are successful.
We have been talking about a more holistic way to measure student success and outcomes. So I'm sure Tom will be very receptive to that
So
conversation.
could you just pass that along for
I
me?
will. Yep.
Appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Ken? Any comment? No? I don't know, Matt, if you get an extra comment, but. All right. So, our next meeting is gonna be in 2 weeks. So have our questions in by the 14th. We'll meet again on the 21st. We're not gonna go over every single question. We will have access to all of the questions and all of the answers. And then Matt is going to give us that full schedule that we discussed earlier. And that's all I got. All right. Anything else? And time, oh boy,
7:48.
7:48. Thank you, everyone.
Nicely done.